everybody. You take your pleasure when you can. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Anything could happen up here. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sam Kirkland. My pronouns are he and him, and it's an absolute honor to serve as your worship associate along with Grandpa Vince Waldron this morning, while our minister, the lovely, the Reverend Christine Dance, is away from the pulpit having a vacation, maybe getting a pedicure or something, you know, who knows? I don't know, but whatever she's doing on her own, and she's having a good time. All right. So welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. Please find a place in our sanctuary where your body can be comfortable. We have multiple seating options, a table in the back filled with art supplies, a shelf of sensory tools, and lots of space if you need to stand, stretch, or sway. Both children and adults are welcome in all of these spaces. A very special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. Anybody here for the first time? Robert, put your hand down. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything we do. A very special welcome to all of you joining us via Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook. Those of us in the room, can we turn and wave to our folks online, remembering that we are one congregation, no matter where or how we are participating together today. Jan Kaplan. This is so exciting. So there you go if you need it. It's on there, and this is the scroll down. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Our opening words are from the responsive reading, A Litany of Atonement by Robert Eller Isaacs. I hate to tamper with the author's title, but the reading seems to be more about forgiveness than atonement. Are they synonyms? Synonyms? Well, there's a difference between the two. Atonement requires payment, and forgiveness does not. I'm not a student of the biblical tradition. I didn't grow up as a Christian or with the Bible. Some of you were, however, and you may find it interesting to remember that God gives both atonement and forgiveness, but he tells us only to give forgiveness to one another. So, we're going to do this as a responsive reading. I will start. I hope it's up there. Okay, there we go. Okay. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusions of separateness. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. Beautiful, thank you. Gary will assist with lighting the chalice. Please join me as we recite our covenant. And as Gary lights the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist Association. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant.
Before we go any further, we want to let you know that everybody that's participating in the service took part in the forgiveness workshop. There were points where people wanted to surrender what they wanted to do because they felt like, well, their voice might have been, heard a couple of times or two, but they were moved by what happened to them in the workshop, and they felt like this was a reading, this was a song, this was a whatever that they wanted to do. And so I want to let you know that right off the bat. So Jan, she was in our workshop, Gary was in our workshop, everybody that's going to be participating other than Vince and I were in our workshop and students of our workshop. And I would like to tell you that this is a panel service, and panel services tend to run a little longer. So prepare yourself for that. And also to prepare yourself maybe to allow feelings and emotions to come up. We got tissue at different stations all over the place, just in case that, in case water, what did the lady say, Boo, when the water came? You don't remember? Okay, all right. Well, if water comes from your eyes, we have some sopping things to help you with that. Okay, all right.
I wanted to say before we say anything else that Sam texted me this morning and asked me what color shirt I was wearing. So.
That was low-hanging fruit. That was easy. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this is my home. I do what I want to do here. So, it's like, when Vince said he was wearing red, I'm like, hey, we can do this. All right. So, Vince and I was a student at Vince's workshop years ago when Vince first joined the church-ish, and he put on this workshop about forgiveness. And I went on a Saturday, I was like, okay, what the heck, I'll see. Man, does this guy know his stuff? He was like so affable, so gracious, so generous, and so knowledgeable about this stuff. And I just felt like, wow. I felt right immediately that my life had been changed. My wife says, that I'm a pretty forgiving person anyway. It's kind of like my nature. But I came back like exponentially ready to forgive a lot of stuff, And so it was a perfect springboard for me. I felt like it was one of those opportunities at this congregation that moved me in a way that changed my life. And so when we were watching all the stuff that was kind of swirling about and, the social unrest, and I felt immediately that we probably needed to present this workshop again. And so I got with Vince before he was a grandpa. I got with Vince, and we had a couple of cups of coffee, and we had some planning, and basically just talking about how the situation felt for both of us. And we agreed that if time permitted, that we would do this again. And time permitted. And oh my God, we had such a wonderful time. I believe we had such a wonderful time. People were so generous, so giving, so forgiving. And so This is going to be the culmination of that workshop, which we kind of told people at the very beginning. We're going to give Christine a day off. This is what's going to be part of your pay it forward type thing. But in addition to paying it forward, I think it's going to be just an extraordinary experience for a lot of people in here. All right. So you want to say anything? Because I talked a lot.
Well, I think forgiveness is something that I've studied. I'm a professor at ASU, and it's a really complicated, really rich concept. It's something I come to with a lot of humility because it's been talked about by religious and philosophical people for years. So, but I do think it's a hopeful and a constructive response to kind of the inevitable hurt, you know, that we all experience and the harm that we can cause ourselves and others. So I was really thrilled when Sam came and really wanted to do something together because we've been talking about this for years. And it's a concept that has a long history in religious traditions. Most of us probably have heard about forgiveness maybe in another religious tradition, and we wanted to think about, well, what would it mean in our tradition, right? If we're a community of our time, you know, is forgiveness part of that? And for me, it just seemed like a great time to do it because, you know, we live at a time of a lot of anger. You know, a lot of us feel upset
Amen.
and angry about what's going on in society. And,
Amen.
Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe there's a role for forgiveness in that. And there's a lot of myths about forgiveness. One of the myths is that it's a weak response to wrongdoing, and I think it's a really strong response. It's grounded in being accountable. It's grounded in justice. So we thought, what a great time to do a class. And it's something we know forgiveness can be really good for us as individuals and as a community. You know, what would it mean to be a forgiving community? But it's a really complicated and interesting thing. It's the kind of thing that UUs like to talk about.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to do a little class on it, and I'm just really thrilled that folks who joined us are here to share, you know, what we talked about. So, and we're glad you're here to explore it too.
So there you go. You're right there with the announcements. Just so you know.
Okay.
Just keep talking. I'm gonna sit down. Okay.
Do I do it now, or are we gonna do a song?
I think. Let me see. Is there a song? There is a song. Oh my God, it's me. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Vince.
We're gonna forgive you.
Oh, thank you for giving me. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sick of myself. So, check. All right. So, as a prelude to this, a prelude, whatever the lude is, prelude to this song, Liz Merchant in our second workshop class said, at the end, she said, so what if you feel like you've done something that's unforgivable? And in that moment, I was like, I gotta say, I never thought about that. And I know I've done some unforgivable stuff in my life because, you know, I'm 66 years old. I've been living on this planet for 66 years. But it was just like one of those moments of like, oh my God. And it gave for me, as a facilitator of the workshop, it gave it an entirely different spin and an entirely different point of significance this time around that I really didn't think I fully explored when I was a student of Vince's years ago. And I want to thank you for that, Liz, and I'll never forget it, and hopefully our friendship will stay, you know, forgivable and all of that. All right. So what's going to happen is this is our hymn for the day. It's called How Could Anyone? It's hymn number 1053. Do we have books? Or it's on the thing? It's on the, okay, all right. So I'm going to sing it through it once, and then we can all sing it through it together. And if you want to, you can hum with me to uplift my spirit as I'm singing it. I would appreciate that. But then the second time around, you're going to sing because you're part of this congregation too. Okay, all right, okay. All right. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? miracle, how deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you how that your love is how deeply you're connected to my soul. Thank you, Liz.
My name is Vince Waldron, and my pronouns are he and his. Everything going on at UUCP can be found at our website, phoenixuu.org, and our weekly newsletter, Compass. Oh, there it goes now. Got it, thank you. Some announcements from civic engagement. It's the time of year to ring out the old and ring in the new. Start now to set aside gently used warm weather clothing to donate to...
It's supposed to be cold weather.
Oh, I'm sorry, cold weather.
I cleaned him up.
That makes more sense for this season. Thank you. I'm just a script reader, apparently. So cold weather clothing to donate to asylum seekers heading to cold climates to await their hearings. We will collect them on Sunday, December 18th, and Saturday, December 31st. Details to follow. This is your last week to help with the Maryland School Holiday Project. Please sign up for a gift or donation at the back table today, or find the announcements on Compass and our website. Help make the holiday brighter for several families that are struggling. Your generosity is really appreciated. And UUCP's Christmas Caroling Caravan is back. Woohoo! If you enjoy singing Christmas carols and spreading cheer, please join us on the afternoon of Saturday, December 17th. We will meet at UUCP at noon, sing a few carols together, and then spend a relaxed afternoon visiting and singing to UUCP elders who are rarely able to attend services in person. If you'll definitely be attending, or if you want the route so you can meet us somewhere along the way, just please let Benji know. For coffee hour, we will be holding it in the Johnson Room because of the weather, so please remain masked unless you are taking a sip or a bite.
Thank you, Vince. Each month, we split all undesignated funds from the offering 50-50 with a different organization. For December, our Share the Plate partner is Arizona Helping Hands. Arizona Helping Hands provides essential services to children in foster care, including basic needs like beds, cribs, and diapers. School needs like backpacks, notebooks, personalized birthday packages, foot lockers, where they can keep their belongings, and a home safety requirements like fire extinguishers and stuff like that. So, please. Was that Felix? That's Felix. Felix! Please donate to our offering either by putting cash in the collection basket or by using one of the methods on the screen behind me. For all that you give to our congregation and our community partner, we are so grateful.
In the last while, I had some very difficult times with some of my family, and I was filled with a lot of anger and frustration, and knew I needed some way to figure my way through that, and this class was offered. So I say, to everything there's a time, for every good purpose under heaven. You can hum or sing along. Forgive me.
And we need some props. And I thought that maybe some of you might have these things just lying around your house. Okay, maybe not lying around your house, but you might know where I could find them. So I need these things. And if you have them, if you could bring them in next time you're here and pass them to me, that would be huge. I need a construction hat. Awesome. Is it an ADOT construction hat? Just so you all are aware, beginning in January, I will be wearing an ADOT construction hat for every children's service. A cowboy hat, a flashlight, a disco ball. Those are those mirrored balls that you can shine the light on. Stuffed animals, specifically I need a cow and a horse. I need robes or stocking caps for 3 people, a teddy bear, and 1 bag of Ricola. Thank you so much. You know, just traditional Christmas pageant things. Don't worry, we already have the Pteranodon. Okay. The other thing I need to talk to you about before I begin, I need everyone who's 13 to 18 years old to cover their ears. Great. Okay, so our teenagers, specifically our middle schoolers and high schoolers, are amazing. This year, they have been the class, the group that shows up most consistently for activities, who comes to help most consistently before service in the morning, and they've just been phenomenal. They have an overnight that was planned for December 17th with a neighboring congregation, and it sounds like that overnight might get canceled. We're still not sure. But that would stink, right? Your first overnight back from pandemic lockdown getting canceled. So, that's the same day as caroling, and I was thinking that if there are 2 or 3 really brave, really flexible adults, we could work together to plan a maybe party. In the event that their overnight gets canceled, the kids could have a party here. Because I think they deserve it, I think they love it, and I think it'll help grow their UU faith. So if you're at all willing, please come see me and say, yeah, I want to help these kids get to celebrate, okay? Because we think they deserve it, right? Okay, I'm going to tell them to unplug their ears, and we're just going to give them little signs of love. Okay, teenagers, unplug your ears. Okay, we love you so much. We didn't say anything bad about you, I promise. Okay, shall I tell a story? Once there was a village, and this village was amazing. People really worked to learn what one another loved and what felt good and how to help each other. And that in itself was so hard, but they worked to do it. And everything was peaceful, and they thought of each other as the beautiful community. And they knew that beauty didn't just mean visual, it meant all sorts of different things, but still they called themselves the beautiful community. But see, no matter how much work you do to emotionally know one another, to work through conflict, to handle each other, there are things that you can't prevent. And one day, the people in the beautiful community woke up to see that the sky was gray, and it was starting to rain, and it was very cold, and the cold was unexpected, and the wind was blowing, and there was thunder off in the distance. And something felt different about this storm. Like, you know, when you look to the south and see that this isn't just a dust storm, but the clouds are rolling over each other, and you know it's going to be a real haboob. That's what they felt, but even more. And in fact, a huge storm did come, and there was lightning, and there was rain, and it would be spells of hot and spells of cold, and the wind was terrible, and so terrible that there was even multiple tornadoes. And it was awful. It was so, so scary. And people did whatever they could to make it through the storm. And luckily, they did. Each person was able to survive the storm. But see, the fate of the beautiful community isn't about what happened during the storm. It's about what happened afterwards. Because there were some people who made it through perfectly fine, perfectly safe, unscathed. And then there are people who were hurt. And there were people who were physically hurt, who were emotionally so scared that they had trauma. There was all sorts of things that happened. But every single person had a different experience of the storm. And it was hard to be in community. It was hard to remember that this little one liked mashed potatoes, but this little one liked butterflies. And people would get confused and forget, or they would be so busy rebuilding their house that they would forget to make sure that their neighbor had food. And it got hard, and there was so much friction and bumping up against one another that people started to come together and say, how do we get back to where we were? We have to work to heal this. And for example, the little old man said, oh, I know that the little girl broke her leg because her family's house fell down during the storm. And in order to heal, well, my family has a recipe for soup, and it's got lots of rich greens in it and garlic and mushrooms. I'll make her a pot of soup to heal. So he worked and worked all day and cooked her a pot of soup and brought that little girl the pot of soup, only to find out she hated mushrooms. She thought they tasted like cooked styrofoam. She was right. And then There was, there was the family who, during the worst of the storm, when someone had came pounding at their door, they had said, oh, we don't know who that is. Maybe it's just a branch. I don't know. Maybe it's a stranger trying to get in and steal stuff from us. When the wind was the worst and most terrible, and they didn't answer their door. And so the man who had been knocking at the door ended up having to stand out in the storm all by himself, abandoned by who were in fact his neighbors. And that family felt so bad about it. And they went over to their neighbor's house, and they wanted to sit down and have a big, long conversation of apology, how sorry we are. And the man said, you know what? I don't need this. I stood out in the storm, and I screamed all of my anger and hurt and pain at the storm and at the wind, and I survived. And I have never felt stronger than I do now. And while I hear your apology and how important it is to you, I don't need it. And then there was the city officials who said, oh my gosh, the roads didn't work, the ambulances didn't come, we are so sorry. But then, because the town wouldn't vote to fix it, because they couldn't get their stuff together to get an election, all they had was the apology and nothing after. This went on for months and months. The memory of the storm wasn't about the wind, it wasn't about the lightning, it wasn't about the tornado, it was about trying to figure out how to get back to the beautiful community. And what they started to figure out was that they couldn't get back to the community in the past because the community in the past had buildings that didn't exist anymore. The community in the past had a little girl who was 8 months younger than the one who was here now and whose leg was healed. The beautiful community of the past was gone, and they needed to figure out what the one of the future was. And that was hard. It was so, so hard, and they worked, and there was more fights and arguments, and there was more love, and there was more strength, and there was more feeling of weaknesses, and they worked, and they worked, and they worked. But as they worked, they felt stronger. They also saw where there were more cracks, but they knew they could get to that point. We will be back to the beloved community. Here's the thing. Before they reached that point where they could say, yes, we are the beautiful community again, there was a morning where they woke up, and the sky was dark, and it was raining, and the wind was blowing, and they could hear thunder in the distance. And I don't know what happened after that. I don't know what the next storm brought, but I hope, hope, hope that in every moment they moved in love and they remembered that they were still the beautiful community. Thank you for sitting with me during a scary story. I appreciate your power and love. You are all so very powerful and so very loved. Thank you.
It's a time when we share in the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together is good to share, to support each other, and to connect. Folks on Zoom, please feel free.
Sorry.
Okay.
These are pictures that go with my story. One is a person made out of natural disasters. It is still strong and amazing. One is just amazing. And I forgot to show them, and I'm so sorry. These were made by Bela. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Folks on Zoom, please feel free to share and enter any joys and sorrows into the chat, putting your name at the beginning. Those of you here in person, the joys and sorrow cards were at the front table for next week. So if you got a sorrow or a joy right now, you put it in for next week, right? I'm assuming, yeah. And I have a few of them from you. Let's see. So Sunshine is our Zoom leader today, and it looks like we might not have any via Zoom. Okay, here we go. From Amy Miskell. Reverend Christine made time in her schedule this week to visit a dear friend and her mom, whom my friend had. Okay. Reverend Christine made time in her schedule this week to visit a dear friend and her mom, whom my friend has been doing hospice care for. She is expected to pass away today or tomorrow. Sorry, Amy. Thank you, Reverend Christine. Thank you, Katie, for your story, and yes, we will build a new and better community with gratitude. Yeah. And from Karen Kurtz, Joy, we have a whole new team of medical professionals treating my cancer with integrated care. Grateful for this new, expanded expertise and renewed hope. Thank you, God. So Michelle and I would like to share that her mother is doing so much better after a very anxious week. We thank you all for your prayers and your well wishes. And now I have a couple of joys. The Stevenson Browns, I guess they went to Camp de Benneville Pines, and I guess they understand. It's a joy for discovering over Thanksgiving what all the fuss about Camp de Benneville Pines is all about. So I guess they had a really, really good time. Let me look and see if we got any more. Okay. Okay, this is from Peyton, and it's about her mom, I guess Marissa. Peyton has his, oh no, wait a minute, Joy. Peyton has his winter concerts at school and at Camelback Bible later this week. He asked that everyone send support for him and his classmates if possible. He's sort of nervous. Okay, all right. Okay, and this joy is from Kathleen and Vince Waldron. It's their first grandchild. Her name is Alice Adelaide. She was born on Thanksgiving Day. 6 pounds, 13 ounces, and she is beautiful. And I have seen pictures. She is beautiful, spectacular. All right, and so now is the point where we send hearts to one another from Zoom people to people in person and vice versa. So form that heart. And now, Christian Macy.
So just after joys and sorrows, I think is a good time to reflect a little bit on forgiveness from the standpoint of something Katie touched on actually in the story about the beautiful community, the concept of letting go. Because one of the harder parts about any joys or sorrows that we feel, especially the sorrows, is allowing them to pass and allowing them to move on. And the way I read it, that's what forgiveness is all about. Forgiveness is allowing the things that we've done to others and the things that others have done to us to pass on and to let them go. And it's hard to do forgiveness, to practice forgiveness, but that's what it is. It's a practice. It's something that we can work on. And when we practice forgiveness, there's really two sides to forgiveness. There's the giving forgiveness, and then there's the seeking forgiveness. And as I understand, next week we're actually going to be speaking on liberation in Buddhism. And one of the concepts that I was taught in learning mindfulness meditation, especially in the Buddhist tradition, is the concept of the two wings of freedom, which are awareness and compassion. And so thinking in terms of mindfulness practice, thinking in terms of forgiveness, I wanted to lead us in a meditation, and of course, you're welcome to participate or not. It is entirely up to you, that explores what it means to ask forgiveness and to give forgiveness. So if you'd like to participate, I'm just going to ask that you find a posture for yourself that feels relaxed and comfortable, but where you can still feel alert and present. And I'm going to ask you, if you feel comfortable again, to close your eyes. We're going to take 3 deep breaths together into our bellies and pause on that last breath just for a moment. It's okay to take more breaths too. And as you take those breaths, feel your body. Notice the feeling of your feet on the ground, of your seat on your seat, your shoulders, your fingers. No judgment, just awareness of how you're feeling. And now we're going to start with the idea of asking forgiveness. So I invite you to call to mind a situation where, and this should be light, this shouldn't be something deep or hard right now. This is just an introduction. Think of a situation where you feel that you might want to ask forgiveness of someone, and bring their face to mind. And if you're willing to ask forgiveness, then you can say something like, I recognize the hurt and pain that I may have caused, and I ask your forgiveness. I'm sorry. And if you're not ready, and that's okay too, then you can say instead, I recognize the hurt and pain that I may have caused, and I intend to seek forgiveness. And in this moment afterward, I invite you to again recognize how you're feeling in your body and notice your forehead, your ears, your fingers. And now bring attention to your breath and let it go. And we can move into the next bit of practice, which is giving forgiveness. And again, keep it light. It shouldn't be anything that's really hard for you. But call to mind a situation where you feel that you were wronged, maybe by someone that you truly care about, and that you're feeling like you could consider forgiving. And call their image to mind. And you can say something to this person along the lines of, I recognize the pain and hurt that I felt, and I forgive you. Or, if you're not there yet, And again, that's okay. You can say something like, I recognize the hurt and pain that I have felt, and I intend to forgive you. And now noticing your body again, how it feels. Always coming back to this, noticing your eyes, your toes, your back. And now, finding a neutral space and resting in that space. Focus on your breath and rest. I'm going to share something with you, and then we'll finish our practice together. Let it go. Let it roll right off your shoulders. Don't you know? The hardest part is over. Let it in. Let your clarity define you in the end. We will only just remember how this feels, and our lives are made of these small hours and these little wonders, these twists and turns of fate. And our lives begin with these small hours, and these small hours still remain. And let it slide. Let your troubles fall behind you. Let it shine until you feel it all around you. And I don't mind if it's me you need to turn to. We'll get by. It's the heart that really matters in the end. And our lives are made of these small hours and these little wonders and these twists and turns of fate. And our lives begin with these small hours. These small hours still remain. And all of my regrets will wash away somehow. But I cannot forget the way I feel right now. So let it go. Let it roll right off your shoulders. Don't you know? The hardest part is over. And let it in. Let your clarity define you in the end. We will only just remember how this feels. And our lives are made of these small hours, these little wonders, these twists and turns of fate. And our lives begin with these small hours, but these small hours will remain. And in this moment, feeling around you the beautiful community, whether you're here or on Zoom, recognizing the love, the people around you, recognizing that we all have joys and sorrows. We all have these little moments. We may travel alone sometimes, but we always journey together. And as you're ready, taking 3 deep breaths, pausing on the last one. And if you chose to close your eyes, when you're ready, open them, maybe take a look around, and recognize that we're all in this together. We all fight these battles, and we're all worth forgiving. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Am I at the right place?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Good morning. I'm Bonnie Fraser. My pronouns are she and her. My spiritual journey has led me through Christianity, psychology, 12-step work, Buddhism, nonviolent communication, sometimes called NVC, Quakerism, and now UUism. I'm grateful to be here at UUCP. When I was a child, I knew that as a good Christian, I should be perfect. And as my father was the doctor in a small town, I was confident that my family was much better than most. Being both a religious snob and a social snob, I didn't like myself very much or other people very much. For some strange reason, they didn't like me a whole lot either. As a teenager, I saw that my goal in life was to learn to love myself and to love others. I'm 80. I'm not going to tell you all the things I've learned. But here's 3 important lessons from my journey. When I was in my 30s, I made a really close friend, and we told each other about the parts of ourselves that we saw as beyond lovable. And I noticed that her illusions of inner awfulness were similar to mine, and not very worthy of serious condemnation. And one time, I did not get a job I really wanted because I lacked experience in one area. I was irrationally furious at myself. I shared that with my friend. Letting some light into my darkest, scariest places was permanently healing. That specific event was the last time I all-out hated on myself. Going to many counselors, getting a degree in counseling, and being in several 12-step programs helped me see the importance of claiming both my virtues and my faults, and being more comfortable with sharing both. An important shift in my understanding of people came from nonviolent communication training. Before that training, I was teaching conflict management in college. When students complained about homework, I was irritated, and I head-tripped them into silence. I insinuated, very politely of course, that they did not know more about the subject than the teacher or the textbook did. I didn't like the tension between us, but I saw no solution. NVC taught me to move from furious to curious, or irritated to insightful. NVC taught me to focus on the basic needs that motivate all humans. You may recall Abraham Maslow's pyramids of needs. His basic belief, he studied masses of people who were doing very well and totally disagreed with Freud about how he'd constructed who people are. And he said that we all have these sets of needs and that our motivation is to meet them. The needs like physical well-being, safety from the environment and others, belonging, community, connection, self-esteem, autonomy, purpose in life. And I've come to agree that our hunger to meet these universal needs is behind every action by every person. We all have the same needs, but many different strategies to meet them. Some strategies are effective, others are less effective, and some of our strategies are totally counterproductive. When I learned to look at what need I was trying to meet with my put-down statements, I saw I wanted to feel secure in myself as a teacher and that I was not using an effective strategy. When I looked for their honorable needs, I saw that they wanted their time to be used in ways they saw as more useful. My enemy images melted. My sense of their otherness melted. I saw them as real people. And almost overnight, they became more beautiful in my eyes. Simultaneously, classroom discussions became deeper. Students and colleagues noticed the difference. And I saw principles that I'd held for a lifetime had been unable to manifest were actually emerging in my words and actions. I'm aiming for more peace in the world, for power with rather than power over, for meaningful connection rather than punishment. At 80, I'm still working on these issues. I don't remember to do these all the time, but I can report progress in being more loving to both myself and others, including being able to forgive more easily. Thank you all for being an important part of my journey today.
Oh, my name is Joan Meyer, and my pronouns are she and her. My biggest takeaway from this class was that if you need to ask for forgiveness or to forgive someone who has passed on, Vince suggested writing them a letter. At first, I was reticent to do this, but the more I thought about it, the more logical it seemed. So I sat down and just let my emotions flow onto a piece of paper. And I kept it on my kitchen table for several days, and I would read it and reflect. And one night I decided to have a little service for myself and went outside and lit a candle and had a container in which to burn the letter. And I can't tell you how cathartic it felt to just address this need that I had. And I encourage you, if you have any issues of asking forgiveness for someone who has passed, to consider this exercise. What else do you have to lose other than a piece of paper? Wow. Forgiveness is an attitude of the mind. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ann Riley, and I had the good fortune to be in the forgiveness class led by Vince and Sam. And it was a beautiful experience. It helped me move along through my forgiveness journey that I'm working on in my own life. And what we learned and talked about and shared was just profound. This morning, I would like to share a piece about forgiveness written by one of my favorite authors and thinkers and philosophers by the name of Mark Nepo. He's written so many books. The one I'm going to read from is entitled The Book of Awakening. And this is from page 317. It's a piece he wrote entitled About Forgiveness. And this really, it's like he wrote this just for me. That's how I feel. So I'd like to share it with you. And I hope that we all find some deeper meaning from Mark Nepo's words. He writes, "The pain was necessary to know the truth, but we don't have to keep the pain alive to keep the truth alive. This is what has kept me from forgiveness. The feeling that all I've been through will evaporate if I don't relive it. That if those who have hurt me don't see what they've done, my suffering will have been for nothing. What it really comes down to is the clearness of heart to stop defining who I am by those who have hurt me, and to take up the risk to love myself, to validate my own experience, pain and all, from the center out." As anyone who has been wrong can attest, in order to keep the fire for justice burning, we need to keep burning our wounds open as perpetual evidence. Living like this, it is impossible to heal. Forgiveness has deeper rewards than just excusing someone for how they have hurt us. The deeper healing comes in the exchange of our resentments for inner freedom. At last, the wound, even if never acknowledged by the other person, can heal and our life can continue. It is useful to realize that the word forgive originally meant both to give and receive, to give for. In keeping with the original meaning, we can see that the inner reward for forgiveness is the exchange of life, the give and take between our soul and the universe. It's hard to comprehend how this works. Yet the mystery of true forgiveness waits in letting go of our ledgers of injustice and retribution in order to regain the feeling in our heart. We can only hope to begin this exchange today, now, by forgiving what's broken in each other and ourselves, and imagining through love how these sacred pieces go together. May peace and kindness fill your life, and may we explore the exchange that helps us forgive.
Thank you, Anne. I invite you all to stretch. We've been sitting a little while, almost to the end, but really do feel free to stretch. I'm Benji Messer. I'm UUCP's music director. I use he, him pronouns. And I was not in the forgiveness class, but Sam suggested that I take a turn anyway. So here is a song I wrote recently about moving on from a breakup and kind of making the best of what you have. It's called I'll Plant Flowers. Let's see. In the road trip of our days, we saw sights and we made hay before we went our separate ways. And even after years apart, I still think that car might start if you were to catch sight of my heart. And that doesn't make no sense, 'cause it's rusting by the fence. I sold the engine to pay my rent. No, I don't plan to be romantic. I won't be asking you to take a ride. But I knew you so well, I can't help but feel memories blow by. So I'll plant flowers in that old abandoned car, and I'll smile when I see it in the yard. Its driving days are past, but the frame was built to last, and tender growing shoots is all we are. Maybe someday we'll be friends with no benefits or tensions, just the warmth that we intend. Maybe I'll return your call, send a birthday card each fall, and be happy when that's all. Maybe once we'll reminisce about the little things we miss, share a laugh but not a kiss. That's my plan, it's not romantic, and you might think it isn't worth a song. But you knew me so well, and maybe that's all that mattered all along. So I'll plant flowers in that old abandoned car. I bet you'll smile if you see it in the yard. Its driving days are past, but the frame was built to last, and tender growing shoots is all we are. Thank you.
Come on up here, Vicky. This is my neighbor. She's one of the sweetest people I've met recently. And before she gets ready to have her reflection/closing words, as I was sitting down looking around the sanctuary, I was looking at all the work that Bill and Laurel, and what's Laurel's husband's name again? Mark, and Big Ed, and how spectacular it looks. And I want to give them a round of applause. And I'm on that team too, and I'm 66 years old, and we need some young hands at that. This is an extraordinary amount of work to do, and as much as we love doing it and dealing with the monster, ooh, that's my mask. Thank you, Vince. The monster, we need some younger folks, a more diverse crowd to do that work. And so thank you, Bill, for being our champion. And I just wanted to say that because I told Bill that I was going to get us some help. And okay, all right.
Yeah, you told me about your knee.
All right.
And I'll always be older than you, you know that.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that something?
By 6 months.
This is the scroll.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And I think we're always young shoots, by the way. I'm learning that we're always growing. And I thank this community for that. My name is Victoria Myers. I also go by Vicky. You're welcome to call me either. My pronouns are she and hers. And I'm going to start by saying immediately following service today, we welcome you to join us either online in person for coffee hour, either online or in person for coffee hour. If you join us in person, it's a little wet on the patio, but if you're outside, you could be unmasked, but inside, please mask inside. And the link for coffee hour is in the chat, on Compass, and on the last slide. I first want to thank all my forgiveness classmates. You generously, bravely shared your reflections today. Thank you. And special thanks to Vince and Sam for offering this class. I really did not know what I was expecting to get out of an adult education class on forgiveness. As a matter of fact, I was pretty hesitant to join. As Vince will tell you, I didn't sign up, I just showed up. because the Sunday before the first class, Reverend Janet Ani and Reverend Christine spoke about being ministers, about learning to accept making mistakes. Ministers, making mistakes. I don't know, that kind of stuck with me. They talked about being imperfect and forgiving themselves and continuing their call to love, to care, and make a difference. I hadn't been thinking about self-forgiveness. It's been said that with unfailing kindness, your life always presents what you need to learn, and maybe a healthy dose of curiosity helps. Most importantly, I realized I had been looking at forgiveness in a rather unforgiving way. It's hard to find space for others when you don't leave room for yourself. By not forgiving, I chose to imprison hurt. I gave a home to anger, some resentment, and a lot of guilt. This class helped me realize that there's much more room for love if I don't let those feelings sit at my table. The lessons are a work in progress and come as I reflect on the one-year anniversary of my mother's death. I've had self-forgiveness on my mind. And so my closing words are a request that Vince and Sam, that you offer this adult education class again. Your guidance, the resources, the tools, the generosity of your patience and willingness to let us go as far as we wanted or not. It was all a gift. Thank you for helping me see a way through. And to all of you, here and online, may we be curious enough, brave enough, and willing to make a fresh start, open to forgiveness or learning about forgiveness, in hopes that we can all find more space for love. May it be so. Go in peace, go in love. Thank you.